И, ну, я же говорил, у нас, значит, фаворитом, если можно так сказать, был действующий президент, господин Байден. Ну, вот он, его сняли из гонки, но он рекомендовал всем своим, значит, сторонникам поддержать госпожу Харрис. Ну, вот и мы тоже так сделаем, будем ее поддерживать. Это, во-первых. А во-вторых...
Раз завещали, значит, надо, да?
Вот. А во-вторых, она так выразительно и заразительно смеется, что это говорит о том, что у нее все хорошо.
This is my video update on this Thursday afternoon, September the 5th. Let's talk about some news. Oh boy, we have got to talk about Russian election interference. The Russians are at it again, interfering in another U.S. election. They interfered in 2016 on the side of Trump. They interfered in 2020 on the side of Trump. And they are interfering again, according to Merrick Garland, the DOJ, the Department of Treasury, the FBI. The Russians are at it again. They are interfering in U.S. elections. They are interfering in America's democracy. The Russians are at it again. So what is going on here? What is happening here in this latest Russian election interference, the Russian election meddling? Well, Merrick Garland, he revealed an investigation, an indictment, unsealed an indictment, an investigation that was going on from the Biden DOJ and the FBI. They claim that RT is pretty much behind all of this. I'm going to summarize what's going on here. RT has been meddling in the U.S. elections by spreading disinformation about Biden, about Harris, about America's democracy, about Ukraine. And all of this is to the benefit of Trump, of course. And RT's been spreading this disinformation via websites, about 30 domain names, which the FBI is telling us were really popular websites that were getting a lot of traffic. I've never heard of any of these domain names or any of these websites, but who am I to question the FBI? And 10 individuals at RT. The ringleader of all of this is the editor-in-chief of RT, Margarita Simonyan, and the FBI. They are now going to go after Margarita Simonyan, but she's in Russia, so I don't think they'll ever be able to get Margarita Simonyan. She's safe and sound in Russia, but they want to grab her, which is interesting to me because Margarita Simonyan, she's been indicted, or she's being investigated by the FBI, and now they want to put her in front of a U.S. court and a judge. And I was under the impression that Margarita Simonyan was already sanctioned. She's already been sanctioned. She's already under sanctions. The U.S. government already wants to go after her since Ukraine started up. She was one of the first people that was sanctioned by the U.S. government. So I guess Margarita Simonyan, the editor-in-chief of RT, she's been under double secret probation, right? Double secret probation. So they want her again. They want her again in the United States, in a U.S. court, answering to a U.S. judge and answering to the FBI. So she's the ringleader. And there are 10 people in total that were involved in this operation. The operation is called Operation Doppelganger. At least that's what the FBI is calling it, Operation Doppelganger. And I'm not making this up, everybody. I'm not making this up. And 2 of the 10 people, they took the lead in this disinformation campaign, this meddling campaign. And one of the guys involved works, from what I understand, or is associated with RT in digital content creation. And the other person, who works for RT or is associated with RT, she's involved in marketing or something like that. Anyway, these two individuals, they pretended to be investors. The Russian guy is a Russian guy. He took up the alias of Eduardo. Oh boy, I forgot his last name. Eduardo, I think Grigorian or something like that. And he's this man, this international man of mystery and a very powerful European investor, media and technology investor. And the Russian girl, she took up the alias of, I believe, Helena Sura or Sukhra or something like that. And these two individuals, according to the indictment, I'm summarizing everything, so even if I get some of the small details wrong, I think the summary is spot on. These two individuals, they got in touch with a company in Tennessee, which was not revealed in the indictment, but it looks like this company, from all the discussion on Twitter X and Telegram, it looks like this Tennessee company, this American company, is Tenet Media. And this Tenet Media is headed by, from what I understand, is headed by Lauren Chen and her husband, or at least they're part of the founding team. She's a very, very popular content creator, and involved in this company. Associated with the content creation for this media company are very, very influential content creators like Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, I believe Dave Rubin as well. But the very popular alternative media figures and personalities, and they're associated with Tenet Media. I still haven't understood what Tenet Media does exactly. From what I gather, it's the content aggregator, and even though Tim Pool has his own channels and he can do his own thing, and he does his own thing, he's also part of this Tenet Media, along with all these other content creators. I guess like an umbrella media group. Anyway, this Tenet Media was contacted by Eduardo Sensitivo, Eduardo Grigorian, and Helena Sukhra. And the indictment says that they invested $10 million in Tenet Media. And when Tenet Media was putting out content, these two investors, pretending to be investors, RT employees pretending to be investors, they would steer Tenet Media as they were creating content and shows and whatever they were creating for social media, for YouTube, for TikTok, for Instagram, whatever. They would steer them in a direction that was beneficial to the Kremlin and beneficial to Trump, and subverted Biden, Harris, and the United States of America. For example, they advised Tenet Media to create content about inflation. I'm not making this up. And Tenet Media, they talked about how bad inflation is, and this is bad for the Biden White House and good for Russia. I don't know. I don't know what inflation has to do with Russia. But yeah, they didn't like the fact that they were putting out content on how bad inflation is in the United States, I guess to damage Biden, the way he's been running the economy. But with Crocus City Hall, with the terror attacks in Crocus City Hall, they told Tenet Media to perhaps consider that maybe it wasn't ISIS behind the Crocus City Hall terror attack, and maybe Ukraine had a role to play. And so Tenet Media, they created some content which said maybe Ukraine was involved in Crocus. How this helps the Trump campaign, or how this damages Biden, what this has to do with the U.S. election, Crocus City Hall, isn't very clear to me, or how this influences how Americans are going to vote. Putting out a video saying that maybe Ukraine was behind Crocus City Hall and not ISIS, how this influences the way Americans vote in 2024, I don't know. But anyway, they were saying bad stuff about Ukraine, and this is not allowed. You can't say bad things about Ukraine. because Ukraine is integral to America's democracy, I guess. So yeah, that's the indictment. That's the whole story. That is the election interference. Basically, they're saying that this violates FARA, the Foreign Agents Act, and there's money laundering involved in all of this as well. How this is connected to FARA, I don't know either. Is it now illegal? Is it now against FARA for a foreign company or foreign investors to put money into a media company? Is that going against FARA now? Because if that's the case, well then, Robert Barnes put out a tweet and he said, if that's the case, well, what about the BBC and the BBC investing in U.S. media assets? Or what about the New York Times? Or every media company in the United States probably has, big, prominent media company probably has foreign investors. What about Fox? So is this in violation of FARA? That's what the indictment is claiming, because this is Russian investment, I guess. And it wasn't it wasn't even like a legit investment, because when you read the indictment, it makes it out to be like this Tenet Media was duped, right? They were duped. They thought they were getting money from Eduardo Sensitivo, and international man of mystery, European investor, and they were really getting money from RT. So it looks like Tenet Media, they got duped into believing this was real European venture capital or seed capital or whatever. So I don't understand what the big deal is. It looks like RT came up with this weird, elaborate, kooky scheme. If this is true, if RT really did do this, they came up with this really crazy, kooky scheme, something out of a movie. And they invested $10 million in a U.S. company, and the U.S. company fell for it. And they put out content that talked about inflation or Crocus City Hall. There you have it. This is Russia election interference, everybody. 2024. Oh boy, let's see. Anything else going on here? So Tim Pool is actually going to be filing a lawsuit against the Harris campaign, because from what I understand, what Tim Pool alleges is that Harris defamed him, took some of his content and altered that content and misrepresented Tim Pool. So now Tim Pool is going to file a lawsuit against Harris. I don't know if any of this is connected, this whole Operation Doppelganger and Tim Pool, his lawsuits, but just throwing that out there. Obviously, this is not about Russia. This is about Trump, but, you know, Russia is the go-to story for the globalists, the Russian election meddling. That's the go-to when they start to panic and things don't look good in the election. It's a sign that things don't look good for the Harris election. So, I mean, you know, if Harris wins, okay, she wins, but what does the deep state get by running this Russia election interference? They can continue to keep sanctions on Russia. They can put more sanctions on Russia. They can push more money to Project Ukraine or whatever other operations they have going on to destabilize Russia or overthrow Putin or whatever. They keep the whole Russia is our enemy narrative going. And if Harris loses and Trump wins, well, Trump won because Russia interfered in the elections. And when Trump becomes president, what do? You better believe it. You better believe it. They're going to start opening up investigations of Russian meddling in the elections, and Putin owns Trump, and who knows? Who knows? They will probably, if Trump wins in 2024, knowing these guys, they will probably say that Trump had a phone call with Zelensky, wherever Zelensky's going to be, and he asked Zelensky to investigate or to look into Biden's involvement in Burisma, and then they're going to impeach Trump. I mean, I would not put it past them. I would not put it past them to just recycle the same impeachment story if Trump wins. That's why they love this Russia meddled in the election story. Whatever happens, it benefits them. You demonize Russia, you sanction Russia, you keep the think tanks well-funded, you keep the NGOs well-funded, you keep the regime change going. The media's happy because they can also talk about Russia, Russia, Russia. NATO's happy as well. Keep NATO funded because they have to fight the Russian enemy. Harris wins. No problem. All is good. Russia's still bad. And if Trump wins, well, you have the impeachment and Putin controls Trump narrative ready to go. Where are the Republicans in all of this? Where are the Republicans coming out and speaking out against this indictment? Where are they? Anyway, that's it. That is it. Operation Doppelganger. 10 million invested in Tenet Media is what they're claiming. FARA violation and money laundering. And RT interfering in the U.S. elections. You know what's interesting about all of this? They claim that the Biden White House claims that Russia is interfering in U.S. elections when just 2 months ago, the Biden campaign was interfered with by Obama, Pelosi, Schumer, Jeffries, Schiff, right? The only interference that we've seen that we're 100% certain of is that Biden's campaign was interfered with 2 months ago. I mean, that's interference that took place. And now the Biden White House and the DOJ is saying that Russia is interfering in the elections. This whole thing is madness, absolute madness. Robert Barnes tweeted, "This indictment is ludicrous, extending FARA to include investing in media companies. Is BBC in U.S. channels also now criminal?" Exactly. And Tim Pool, he kind of responded to all of this news, and he put out a post on X saying, "Upon reflection, I now understand that Ukraine is our greatest ally. As the breadbasket of Europe and a peace-loving people, we cannot allow the fascist Russians to continue their crimes against humanity. We must redouble our efforts and provide an additional $200 billion at once." That's pretty good from Tim Pool. Pretty good post from Tim Pool. Yeah, how is Ukraine connected to America's democracy? Because they say that the investors were telling Tenet Media to run articles, to run content criticizing Ukraine, right? How does this influence an American voter? Or does it really have that much influence in what an American voter decides come November? I doubt it. And if it does, is it that many people that it's going to influence an election? Doubt it. They said that one of the videos, or all the videos together, got something like 16 million views. That's a lot of views, but it's a drop in the bucket in the grand scheme of things. I mean, it's not enough to influence an election. Not even close. Not even remotely close to influence anything. Maybe you're going to get, what, a couple hundred votes here or there? I don't know. The Associated Press, they put out an article with the title, "Right-Wing Influencers Were Duped to Work for Covert Russian Influence Operation," the U.S. says. And of course, they have a featured image of Trump because they want to create in the head, they want to create the association, Russian interference with Trump, right? That's what the Associated Press is doing here. Anyway, the Associated Press says, "They have millions of followers online. They have been major players in right-wing political discourse since Donald Trump was president, and they worked unknowingly for a company that was a front for a Russian influence operation," U.S. prosecutors say. An indictment filed Wednesday alleges a media company linked to 6 conservative influencers, including well-known personalities Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, and Benny Johnson, was secretly funded by Russian state media employees to churn out English language videos that were often consistent with the Kremlin's interest in amplifying U.S. domestic divisions in order to weaken U.S. opposition to Russian interests, like its war in Ukraine. Like every country does that invests in foreign media assets, right? How many countries or investors from other countries are invested in U.S. media companies? I imagine a lot. David Sachs put out a tweet saying, let's see all of the media companies connected to Ukraine or to Ukrainian investors, right? Exactly. Anyway, that's it. That is it. Oh man, what a day yesterday, huh? What a day. So let's talk about the Zelensky government shakeup. A little bit about the Zelensky government shakeup. The Economist, they have an article with the title, "As his popularity fades, Zelensky culls his cabinet. He has reshuffled his team and concentrated power." And Politico, they have an article with the title, "Zelensky suffers huge backlash as reshuffle triggers power grab accusations. A parliamentary majority and martial law mean the Ukrainian president has the right to assemble his government as he sees fit, but the opposition is crying foul." So in this article from Politico, they say that Zelensky, what he's doing is he's shuffling. He's shuffling, and he's a shuffler. They actually say that. Every day I'm shuffling. That's what Politico says. Some Ukrainian government officials close to Zelensky and analysts dismissed the criticism of his firing of government officials and urged the opposition not to dramatize long-planned moves aimed at powering up the exhausted wartime government. Today we need new energy, and these new steps are connected to strengthening our state in different directions, Zelensky said during a press conference in Kiev on Wednesday. The opposition is saying that he's doing this to consolidate power, which is what I said yesterday. And that is what the opposition is now saying today. And the reason they're saying this is because he's getting rid of Kuleba. And Yermak and Kuleba did not get along. And why would you fire Kuleba, the foreign minister? Because he's the point man. He's the guy that all of the Collective West people talk to. That's who they liaise with when they have to discuss Project Ukraine. So he has the connections. He has the network of Borrell and Blinken and all of these guys. And so they had to remove him. Yermak and Zelensky, right? And this is after Yermak went to the United States and he met with Sullivan and Umerov, the defense minister, met with Austin. So I wouldn't be surprised if they floated this to Sullivan, and Sullivan may have said, yeah, okay, get rid of Kuleba, concentrate more power to Kiev. I don't know. Maybe something like that went down. I'm just speculating. But who knows? Yermak and Kuleba, according to Politico, did not get along. And Kuleba, he had the contacts for the Collective West foreign ministers. They were all talking to Kuleba in his office. And now Kuleba's gone, and Zelensky and Yermak, they can now deal with the Collective West leaders directly. They'll put some foreign minister in place who's a nobody, who's a nothing, and they now have the network and the contacts. That's what the opposition is saying. But Politico is saying that Zelensky is a shaker. He is a shaking. He's a shaking and a shuffling. He's a shaking and a shuffling. He's a shaking and a bacon. He's shuffling. He's shuffling is what Politico is saying. Zelensky is shuffling. I shuffle. I do shuffle. Like a Chicago Bears linebacker, the refrigerator. I am doing the shuffle. Oh, man. Yeah. That's what Politico is reporting. So Poltava, the strike on Poltava, where the reports were, and I said in my video I wasn't 100%, but the reports were that in Poltava there were Swedish instructors that were in Poltava at the time of the Russian Iskanders. And now we are getting reports from Sweden saying that this is fake news. But they're not saying that there were no Swedish instructors at Poltava. They're not really taking that route. What they're doing is they're finding an article which they claim was used by Russian disinformation. And they're saying that this is a fake article. This is fake statements. And the Russians picked up on that. Russian disinformation accounts, they picked up on these statements, even though they were fake. And they used these fake statements to claim that Swedish instructors were in Poltava. Here's an article translated via Google Translate. False text about dead Swedes in Poltava was spread in Russian media. A screenshot circulating on Russian channels claims that Swedes were killed in the attack on Poltava on Tuesday. The picture shows a text with German-American Britta Ellwanger's name and profile picture, but it's fake. I didn't write anything about Poltava, she says to SVT News. So they're denying this, but they're denying it in a way that doesn't feel so convincing. You know what I mean? They're singling out one source of this Poltava news that Russian media accounts picked up on, which was, I guess she was saying something, or allegedly she was saying something. This Britta person was saying something about Sweden in Poltava, Sweden instructors at this facility. But now she's coming out and telling Swedish media that she didn't say any such thing and it's fake. But, you know, I learned about I heard about the Poltava thing because of the statements that were coming out saying that this was a training facility specifically for communications and for radar and stuff like that. And Sweden, the Swedish military, and Saab, the Saab defense contractor, they were the ones providing this stuff to Ukraine. That was the reports that I was getting, not some person's statement in Germany. Anyway, they're saying it's fake news. Maybe it is. Maybe there were no Swedish instructors there. Maybe they're picking up on this one instance to discredit the entire story, the entire narrative of Swedish instructors in Poltava. That's a very common trick and technique that governments use. So that's the update there. And let's now talk about Vladimir Putin's statement as he was speaking at the Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok. And Putin, he revealed that Saudi Arabia was involved in the prisoner exchange that took place a month ago. It was Saudi Arabia that brokered the big prisoner exchange. So he thanked MBS. He also revealed that he has not had any communication with Pavel Durov. He didn't even know that Durov was in Azerbaijan when he was in Azerbaijan. So he revealed that as well. He said there was no talks with Durov whatsoever. So that was an interesting revelation. But the best part of what Putin said at this session is that Russia, he was trolling. He was trolling. He said that Russia backs Kamala Harris. Yeah, as the U.S. wishes. As they wish, Russia backs Harris. Putin told the audience that he admired the Democratic Party candidate's infectious laugh and that he respected current President Joe Biden's choice to endorse her as his successor. Putin replied by saying it had been a long time since he had any direct contact with European or U.S. leaders, and noted that it was not up to Russia to choose a favorite in the U.S. presidential election, which is a task for American voters. Putin added that Harris laughs so infectiously that it suggests everything is going well for her. He also suggested that Harris's positive disposition could mean that she would refrain from imposing as many sanctions on Russia as former U.S. President Donald Trump, who Putin said had introduced more restrictions on Moscow than any other president in American history. In the end, the choice is up to the American people, and we will treat their eventual decision with respect, he said. He said that he gave interviews saying in the past, saying that Russia had a preference for Biden when he was asked that question about Trump-Biden, when Biden was still in the running before his election was interfered with, that he would say in interviews, look, we prefer Biden because Biden is predictable. He said, I'm on record saying this many times. And now he said at this event in Vladivostok, he said, well, because I have said that I prefer Biden because he's predictable, I prefer now Harris because she is Biden's successor. That's what Putin said. He's trolling. He's trolling and having fun with all of this, but there you have it. That was the most interesting part, one of the most interesting parts of Putin's statements in Vladivostok at this forum. And finally, Putin also talked about the military situation in Ukraine as well as in Kursk. And he said, and I quote, "Our military has stabilized the situation in Kursk and is now gradually pushing the opponent from the border territories. More importantly, there is no resistance to our advancement in Donbass." Putin explained, "The opponent has weakened itself on the key axis by moving those relatively strong and well-trained units to the border areas." Putin said Russian troops had been securing more land in Donbass, which is a priority for Moscow at a pace unseen in a long time. Meanwhile, Ukrainian troops are suffering very high losses in manpower and hardware. Because of that, Kiev risks a collapse of the front line of the most important axis. The casualties may result in a loss of fighting capability of the entire armed forces, which is what we are looking to achieve, Putin added. So that was Putin in Vladivostok. And finally, before we get to a clown world, the IMF, they are telling Ukraine to raise taxes, raise VAT, the value-added tax, and to devalue the currency, the local currency, the hryvnia. Ukraine has to do this because their economy is in a big mess, and they have a big hole in the economy, and they need to plug up that hole. I believe the amount was 15 billion, if I remember, either 9 billion or 15 billion. I forgot what the exact amount was. I think it was 15 billion. And the IMF, they're going to be in Kiev soon, and that's what they're prescribing to Ukraine in order to begin to plug up the big hole in Ukraine's economy. In other words, what the IMF is prescribing, and I'm very familiar with the IMF, living in Cyprus and in Greece, their toxic medicine that they prescribe to their patients in order to not kill. The IMF never kills the country, the patient. It just keeps them on life support, right, indefinitely. But what they're doing is they're saying, look, you're going to have to tax people, especially the value-added tax. That's going to hurt. I believe the IMF said from 20% VAT, it has to go up to maybe 22 or 23%. We've been there. We've been there in Cyprus and Greece. We have been there. We still are there. So they have to increase the value-added tax. They have to increase taxes on ordinary people. They're not going to be too happy with that, the people of Ukraine. And you have to devalue the currency. You know what that means, right? Devalue the currency, make it cheaper for the investors. You want to call them investors? Make it cheaper for the investors to buy up assets, right? Yeah. To buy up all those Ukraine assets. Anyway, that's the IMF update. Let's do a final. Let's do a clown world. Let's not talk about any more news. I feel like this whole video was kind of a clown world. Operation Doppelganger, Russia election meddling. But Tim Walz, his family, they have come out in support of Trump. And there's a photo that's circulating of his family supporting Trump, and even Trump speaking to Hannity of Fox News the other day. He even came out with a statement and said that Tim Walz's brother and some of Walz's family, they are supporting Trump. So I guess that's the clown world. Even though the whole video was one big clown world. Incredible, incredible stuff. Anyway, that is the video, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and Twitter X. Go to the Duran shop. Pick up some merch, like the t-shirt I'm wearing today, with the flag of Bulgaria. You will find a link in the description box down below. Take care.